Welcome students. Topic 2 looks at the types and characteristics of farming system. So by the end of this topic, we should be able to explain the classification of different types of farming systems and their rationale, describe the different types of farming systems, and discuss the characteristics of farming systems. The farming systems can be described and understood as by its structure and functioning. The structure in its wider sense includes the land use pattern, production ratios, land tenures, size of holding and their distribution, irrigation, marketing coding, transport and storage, trading institutions, and financial markets, as well as research and education. So, as already explained, farming system is the result of a complex interaction among a number of interdependent components. So, to achieve it, the individual farmer allocates certain quantities and qualities of four factors of production, such as land, labor, capital, and management. These factors of production are the ones that have access to processes like crop, livestock, and off-farm enterprises in a manner which, within the knowledge he possesses, will maximize the attainment of a goal he is striving for. For example, if a farmer wants to embark in crop production, need to have land to cultivate as well as capital and many more other things in order to maximize output. The farming system as a concept takes into account the components of soil, water resources, crops, livestock, labor, capital, energy, and other resources, and how these components depends on each other with the farm family at the center managing all agriculture and related activities. The farm family functions within the limitations of its capability and resources, the socio-cultural setting, and the interaction of these components with the physical, biological, and economic factors. The farming system focuses on the interdependencies between components under the control of a household and how these components interact with the physical, biological, and socio-economic factors which are not under the control of a household. So the farm household is the basic unit of the farming system and the interdependent farming enterprises carried out on the farm. In addition to that, the farm family or a farmer is the operator of the farming system. There are different factors that determine the farming system types. The first determinant factor is natural resource and climate. The interaction of natural resources, I think by now you know these resources. Climate and population determine the physical basis for farming systems. Once good arable land is exploited, further population increase leads to intensification of farming systems. As forests and woodland come under pressure, biodiversity is threatened, hence tension between development and conservation goals. Talking of natural resource and climate, we are looking at the water availability. Yes, farming without water is impossible, and you can agree with me. Farmers depend on water for farming, so the availability or scarcity of water resources determine the type of farming system to embark on. For example, people will engage in irrigation farming when water resources are available. In terms of climate, yes, we all know that agriculture contributes to emission of greenhouse gases like methane production by livestock. Therefore, there is no doubt that agriculture and food security will be affected by climate change. So you can see that the change in weather pattern over time has an impact on the farming system of a particular area. For example, people will make different choices on proper enterprise combination on the farm in order to maximize profit. Another determinant factor is science and technology. Rapid expansion in the investment in agricultural technology has influenced farming systems, and People are focusing on technologies that are profitable to them and they are able to choose better enterprises. In addition to that, the introduction of green revolution to combat the issue of hunger has facilitated the growth of cereal food crops. Currently, farmers are adopting new ways of farming. Trade liberalization and market development as another determinant factor. Markets have a critical role to play in agricultural development as they form the linkages between the farm, rural, and urban economics upon which the development processes depend. Markets determine the availability of inputs in a particular area. So, people can decide to adopt or not to adopt a certain farming system due to the availability or scarcity of markets to buy inputs. Sometimes the availability of certain type of inputs on the market can force people to embark on a certain farming system. Take note that farming is a business and people are encouraged to produce for the market. So the market demand for certain commodities on the market can facilitate farmers to venture into a particular farming system, and farmers are taking advantage of the markets which are doing better. With trade liberalization, which is the removal of barriers to trade, people can access any type of variety that is grown in any country. And with international trade, people can access inputs of their choice and can also venture into a farming system of their choice. Not only the market development is accelerating, but patterns of production as well and natural resources usage are also changing profoundly in response to market forces. Let's look at policies, institutions, and public goods as another determinant of farming system. To develop a farming system requires certain decisions to be made, such that policies need to be developed to allow people to engage in any enterprise. Policies on land ownership, water management, and taxation reform, as well as pricing on goods, have a great bearing on types of farming system in a region or area, and farmers are able to choose which farming system to venture into based on that policy. Let's take, for example, if the government is implementing fertilizer subsidy program, definitely farmers will go for enterprises that allow fertilizer use. Institutions that are helping a particular farming system can also help people in choosing that farming system. For example, the availability of land insurance specifically for certain commodities in the area determine the farming system to use. Issues of public goods, general service provided, for example, water, roads, and some infrastructure like the availability of warehouse markets in the area help farmers to choose which farming enterprise to go for. Another determinant factor is information and human capital. The evolution of farming systems based upon increasing specialization, which is the power to do something, or integrated intensification, has required extra knowledge on the part of farm operators. For example, before civilization, people used to use or do simple things on the farm, but now people are advanced and are using even drones to spray chemicals in the field or in order to control diseases. Lack of education, information, and training is frequently a key limiting factor to smallholder development. So, information, knowledge, and capital is very important because that position only help farmers to choose which farming system to use. Indigenous technical knowledge as a determinant factor is the knowledge that people in a given community have developed over time and continues to develop. It is based on experience, often tested over a long period of use, adapted to local culture and environment. It is dynamic and changing, and lays emphasis on minimizing risks rather than maximizing profits. Farmers use existing knowledge they have to influence their farming system. So the indigenous technical knowledge of a farmer has a great influence in managing the farm and farming system. Okay, now let me explain to you ways of classifying farming systems. Here we look at the criteria of classifying farming systems. The first classification is according to size of farm. Here we can talk of collective farming and cultivation farming. Collective farming does not determine the size of the farm and includes the direct collection of plant products from non-arable lands, regular or irregular harvesting of uncultivated plants like the collection of honey, fishing, and mushroom. Although nowadays people are commercializing fish farming as well as mushroom production, but to some extent they usually go hand in hand with collection. In cultivation farming, we are talking of small scale farming and large scale farming. In small scale farming, the size of land is small, labor capital as well as the scale of production is also small. The advantage of small scale farming is that it is easy to manage and many more advantages you can think of. The disadvantages of small scale farming are that it is difficult to take advantage of economies of scale, collective marketing, and the cost of production per unit area is high, as well as it's not possible for mechanization just because the area is too small. Hence, it's not economic at all. In large scale farming, we are talking of the large size holding, large risk, and large factors of production. Its advantages are that there is proper use of land, or I can say factors of production. The farmer is able to use mechanization and collective marketing is also possible. The only disadvantage with large scale farming is that it is not easy to manage. Just imagine managing a large farm. It's not easy at all. And here the possibility of losses again due to calamities like floods is also high. The second classification is according to the production of land. The farmer on a given plot of land obtains more or less definite quantity of yield of any particular time. If he wants to increase his output, he can either bring more land under cultivation or apply more land, more labor and capital to the same piece of land. Here we are talking of intensive and extensive cultivation. The third classification is according to the value of products or income or on the basis of comparative advantages. Here we are talking of specialized farming whereby 50% or more of the income come from that crop of the total production. Mostly the crop has high value. Tobacco can be a good example. We are also talking of diversified farming where several production enterprises are diversified on the farm. For example, you can have maize, groundnuts, and pigeon peas on the farm, but each of the enterprises contributes less than 50% and no one enterprise is given much attention. Mixed farming is the type of farming in which crop production is combined with livestock, whereby livestock is complementary to crop production. Here, 10% of gross income must be contributed by livestock. Another classification or farming system is according to water supply. Here we are talking of rain-fed and irrigated farming. Rain-fed depends on rainfall, that is mostly 80% of arable land depends on rainfall. Irrigated farming depends on artificial application of water in the production year. The next classification is according to the type of rotation. We have lay system, field system, and perennial crop system. In lay system, crops are rotated with fallow. Here there are two types. The first one is unregulated lay farming, whereby the land is just left to fallow. And the second one is regulated lay system. This determine what type of fallow to be used. For example, one can choose to plant certain type of pasture. In perennial crop system, it is where crops that covers the land for many years are grown. So you can think of these crops. There is also a classification of farming system according to degree of commercialization. Depending upon the produce sold in the market for any money, we have commercialized farming, partly commercialized, and subsistence farming. Commercialized farming is whereby more than 50% of the produce is for sale. Farmers mainly grow crops for the market. For example, we can think of tobacco, tea, and coffee. In partly commercialized farming, here more than 50% of the value of produce is for home consumption. So you can think of crops that may fall under this type of farming. And in subsistence farming, virtually there is no sale of crop and animal products, but mainly used for home consumption. You can also think of examples here. Another classification is according to the degree of nomadic. This is whether people are moving from one area to another for farming, especially livestock farming. Here, we are talking of grassland farming. This is the type of farming which involves the rearing of animals for economic production, and it is classified on the basis of nomadic. So here there is total nomadic, whereby animals move freely every time. We have semi-nomadic, whereby animals have permanent residence and are supplemented with other food. We have also partial nomadic. Here animals have permanent residence and stay there for seasons and then later on move to another place. Lastly, we have stationary animal husbandry, whereby animals just stay in one village. Classification of farming systems according to cropping pattern and animal activities. In this system, classification is according to the leading crops and livestock activity. For example, tea, coffee, banana, and sugarcane farming. Farming system can also be classified according to implements used for cultivation. For example, we are talking of hoe farming and mechanized or tractor farming. Lastly, farming systems can be classified according to the cropping system. Yes, depending on the resources and technology available, different types of cropping systems are adopted on farms. These cropping systems include monocropping or single cropping, multiple cropping or polycropping, relay cropping, overlapping cropping, and many more. Here you can read about these cropping systems on your own. So after classifying the farming systems at simple or small scale and based on the local goal, now let's look at the major categories of farming systems. They are major than the ones described because people will only adopt a certain aspect of it. So the analysis of farming systems has been evolving like in the 70s. The farming systems, for example, in tropical Africa was divided into categories. First, we are talking of the traditional and transitional systems where nomadic herding, bush fallowing, compound and homestead farming and Mediterranean agriculture, also known as traditional, were practiced. Another category is the modern farming systems and their local adaptation. These include mixed farming, livestock ranching, intensive livestock production, for example, poultry, pigs, dairying, and large-scale farming and plantations, where large-scale food and arable crop farms based on natural rainfall irrigation projects involving crop production and large-scale tree crop plantations. Yes, this also includes specialized horticulture systems that involve market gardening, track gardening, and fruit plantation and commercial fruit and vegetable production. Modern farming systems were introduced based on specific extensive research that has been done in specific areas. So there has been a marked shift of classification to a more holistic perspective. This is based on a broader goal of improved livelihoods and greater household food security, where household structure, gender, social network, local institutions, information, policies, and markets play a role. It has more focused on participatory approach, stressing on indigenous knowledge, group planning, experimentation, and monitoring. Delineation of major farming systems provides a useful framework within which appropriate agricultural development strategies and interventions can be determined. So broadly, the classification of farming systems of development regions is based on the following criteria. Firstly, we have the available natural resource base. For example, we are talking of water, land, grazing areas, and forests, climate, landscape, including slope, farm size, tenure, and organizations. Apart from looking at the natural resources available, we also need to look at the dominant pattern of farming activities at household livelihood, including field crops, livestock, trees, aquaculture, hunting and gathering, processing and off-farm activities, and taking into account the main technologies used, which determine the intensity of production and integration of crops as well as livestock. Therefore, based on these criteria described, the following 8 broad categories of farming systems have been identified. Irrigated farming systems embracing a broad range of food and cash crop production. We are talking of wetland land-based farming system, rain-fed farming systems in humid areas of high resource potential characterized by a crop activity, notably root crops, cereals, industrial tree crops, commercial horticulture, and mixed crop livestock systems. We are also talking of rain-fed farming systems in steppe and highland areas, which are often mixed crop livestock systems. Land-fed farming systems in dry or cold low potential areas, dualistic farming where the dynamics of land, labor are considered like large commercial and small farming. We have also the coastal artisanal farming, often mixed farming systems. Here, they would mix crops and fish farming. We are also talking of urban based farming system, typically focused on horticulture and livestock production. The names also reflect key distinction attributes like water resource availability, like irrigated, land-fed, moist, dry, etc., etc. Climate, landscape, farm size, production intensity, like intensive and extensive, dominant livelihood source, dual crop livelihoods, as well as location, for example, forest-based, coastal, urban-based, and many more. So the table there describe the various farming systems, and the map shows the major farming systems in sub-Saharan Africa, Middle East, as well as North Africa. So You are required to identify the farming systems for Malawi. Thank you for your attention.